Today on In the Woodyard, we've got a delivery for some cherry, and we're going to talk about what it takes to be a firewood entrepreneur, or just an entrepreneur in general. Here we go. So this order that I have today is going to a longtime customer. He wants cherry, so we're going to put the trailer on. I got the baby dumper here. We're going to put this on, and we're going to be delivering a face cord, or a third of a cord, of cherry. That is what's going to happen. So today I'm going to talk about what it takes to actually become a firewood seller entrepreneur and what I did. Ooh, look at that. We are froze down. She released. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is get this thing hooked up, and we're going to talk about my life as far as being an entrepreneur. Pretty much my whole life I've always done something to make money, because my dad told us when we were little, if you guys want money, you're going to have to go earn it, because I ain't giving you any. That was motivation. His way of motivation. He says kids that, my dad always said kids that get stuff given to them never accomplish much. And I would agree with that. You got to make people want to do stuff. You got to make them hungry, or at least do something that they enjoy so they want to do it. So when I was a kid, let's see, I got that hooked up. It's got to raise up the foot here. When I was a kid, we were entrepreneurs right from the get-go. My grandpa was a professional bait dealer. And so we worked for him starting at like age 10. We would go out into the woods and we would help seine minnows, carry minnows, empty minnow traps, sort minnows, all that kind of stuff. And then he offered to us that if we were ambitious enough to go pick night crawlers, he would take them on his routes when he would go to sell to bait shops, and he would sell our night crawlers for us. He didn't get a cut or anything like that. He just said whatever the going price was, and back then it wasn't much, but we thought it was a lot. So we picked night crawlers for hours to the point where you couldn't stand up straight anymore. I remember as a kid having a bad back. Maybe that's why my back is strong to this day, is that I spent a lot of time bent over picking night crawlers. We would pick thousands of night crawlers in the evening in the springtime when it would rain, and we had beds that we would raise them in, and so it was a whole experience that we did with the night crawlers. Back then I think we were getting like 2 cents or 3 cents a piece. It wasn't very much. I think the most we ever got maybe was 4, but it was always around 2-3 cents per night crawler. But they would buy everything that we had. And that was, geez, see, I would have been in the early 70s, 70, 71, 72, 73, somewhere in there. I was 10, 11, 12 years old. So that's when we sold a lot of night crawlers. And again, we sold thousands of them. And we thought we were rich. So my grandpa would come back from his routes after selling several thousand of them, and we'd each get $20 and like, woo! So that's kind of where it started. And then we worked for him, seining minnows and carrying minnows and just running the minnow business with him, doing that kind of stuff. And he paid us by the day, and it wasn't much. It was like, $6, $7, $8 a day, like $1 an hour, something like that. It was a great learning experience because he was self-employed, had customers. I got to see the interaction that he had with his customers when he would sell to them. And I remember one of the things that stood out to me more than almost anything is that when people would come to him, they would buy their, say, 2 dozen fatheads or 2 dozen shiners, whatever it was for when they were going fishing. And he would count them out into their bucket, and then he would always grab a handful of something else. It was like mud minnows, or maybe it was a couple little suckers, or it was some slippery jack, something like that he would throw into the bucket. Here, try these too. He was basically like a drug dealer, giving them a little sample so that they would get hooked on it. And that's kind of what I started doing with my firewood business. When I have people that buy a particular kind of wood, that want something that they are used to burning, a lot of times I give them something they haven't burnt before. That is the case for this particular customer. He's always burned oak his whole life, he told me. Well, about 3 years ago, I said, hey, I know you like the oak. I got some cherry. I'm going to give you a little bit of that. So I took him a couple armfuls, and he tried it, and he said he absolutely loved it in the fireplace. He said it actually had more flames. It smelt really good. He said the color of the flame was different. He said he just loved it. So that's all he buys now is cherry. He's hooked on cherry. So if you want people to have a certain kind of wood that you have a lot of, give out some free samples, kind of like the grocery store. They're trying to get you to buy it, and it works, so do that. So we're going to go load some wood, and I'll tell you about my whole entrepreneurial life and all the things I've done to make money over the years. All right, so I pulled over to the cherry bin here. We're going to start chucking in choice chunks of cherry into the chariot. The next thing I want to mention as far as what I did as a kid to make money, because like I said, our dad didn't give us any, we had to actually earn it. The next thing we did was we shoveled a lot of driveways in the wintertime. As soon as we had our driveway done, which was number one, we had to get ours done first, otherwise we couldn't go shovel anybody else's. That was the rule. We would go to the neighbors and we would just knock on the door and ask them if they want us to shovel their driveway. We shoveled a lot of driveways, a lot of the neighbors around us, because back in the old times, when I was a kid, nobody had snow blowers. Nobody. None of our neighbors had snow blowers. I don't remember a single one. So we would shovel a driveway, and sometimes that we would get, you would get, a quarter or 50 cents a piece, something like that. I'm not kidding. That's all we would get. Once in a while, somebody would pay us $1. I remember one lady in particular that we would go to. She always would give us $2 a piece. We went to her first often because she paid very well. And then the people that paid less, we would go to them last. So, and then it got to the point where people would actually call us and say, hey, your boys going to come shovel today? Because they'd want to know if we were going to show up. Because I think they wanted us to do it. They didn't want to do it. A lot of times it was older people, single women, widows. Some of the neighbors that didn't have kids would have us, but generally it was older people. So we'd shovel driveways. That was another way we'd make money. Another thing we'd do is we would mow lawns. We didn't do a lot of it, but we did enough that it was worth doing. A few of the neighbors that were older too, they would let us mow their lawn, or they would have us trim around the trees, or once in a while they would have us come over and they would have us do a project with them, because we were basically for hire. Another thing my brother and I did a lot of was made hay. We had a lot of farms around us, small farms, part-time farmers that would make hay. One guy in particular that we would work for, he made little bitty bales, tiny ones that you could grab with one hand and throw them up into the loft. I love that. Joe is a great guy to make hay with because he made little bitty bales. I love that. But then we had another guy that was a friend of my dad's, and he would farm us out to go make hay for him, and that was an all-day, multiple days, 3-4 days in a row, and he made monster bales, the big 90, 100 pounders that you could barely lift as a kid. Oh, they were terrible. And he would make hay all day long. I would go out and make the loads generally in the field because I knew how to stack them on the trailer, and I could get a big load. Back then 120, 130 bales on a load. If you stack it right, you get a lot of them on there. And my brother Ken spent most of his time up on the loft stacking, which was okay. I was out in the sun getting cooked. He was up in the barn loft getting cooked. And, you'd have bloody forearms from lifting the bales and throwing them, so we did a lot of that. Basically manual labor, but we loved it. It was awesome. So I'm going to chuck some wood in and I'm going to tell you some more things that we did as kids to make money. There it is. The cherry is in the chariot. So I got that in. It's ready to go down the road. The next thing that I did as a kid to make money was my brother Ken and I trapped muskrats, raccoon, mink, mainly muskrats. And the reason we did that is our grandpa was a professional bait dealer in the summer, like I said. But in the fall and winter, he trapped. That's what he did full time for 30, 40 years. That's all he did. And he was doing that during the heydays back in the 40s and 50s when mink were worth $20, $30, $40 a piece. And back then, that was a lot of money. And then we started trapping. He gave us some traps, showed us a little bit, and we were on our own. Starting, I think I was 8, my brother Kenny was 7. So we trapped from the time we were 7 and 8 all the way till today. We still trap together. And if you're interested in watching trapping videos, they're on our other channel. They're on my other channel, Out of the Woodyard. We trap a lot of beaver now. But back then, there was a fur boom in the 70s that the price of everything went way up. It's when oil prices were really high. And the reason that happened is that when the oil prices are really high, the Russians produced a lot of oil and they had a lot of money. And an average Russian owns 3 or 4 or 5 garments made out of real fur because they're men. And the women look good in them. So back then, fur prices went really high. We were getting $7, $8, $9 for muskrats back in the 70s, and we caught hundreds of them. So we would make enough money in a year that the two of us had enough money for the whole year in a matter of a 2-week time period. Our parents would actually let us take off of school because we were making more money trapping than most adults were making on their jobs. Like I said, $8, $9 a piece, and we were catching a good day back then for us was maybe 20, 30 a day, and we did that for weeks. So we caught and sold the fur and made thousands of dollars. So it was pretty awesome. We bought bikes for ourselves, brand new bikes. We bought a stereo for ourselves for a room. We bought a TV for ourselves. And we had money to go spend and do stuff that we wanted to do. So we were kind of encouraged to go do that. So that was one of the ways that we made money back then and still do to this day. And the other thing is that our uncle knew that we were hard workers because we were basically made to work, hired us, and he hired us to do maintenance on buildings that he had contracts for doing lawn care and janitorial work. So we mowed lawns, we stripped and waxed floors, we cleaned carpets. We worked from him starting from like age 12 all the way through high school. So we did that too. So there's a lot of ways for a kid to make money nowadays. A lot of them are just, they're too much laziness, I guess. But that's what we did. So from early on, we were taught to work to make money, and I kind of like doing it my own way. So the next step in the progression was that I got a job working for a photographer, and they trained me, and I was able to go to school, earn my master's degree while I worked for him, and I worked there for 7 years. And then in 1988, my wife and I left where we were living, started our own business here in the valley, in Appleton here. Appleton, Wisconsin, for those of you who don't know. So I've been self-employed for a long time, 30-some years. So I really don't know anything else. I just know that if you want money, you got to work. That's just the way it is. And I found ways to make money on the side all the way through during that time too. Now, while I was a photographer, I also taught photography outside of my business at colleges. And then I developed a program on how to do what I do. I wrote 2 different books on how to do the business the right way for doing high school senior portraits, which is the main part of my business. And then I also wrote another book on how to build and construct sets and backgrounds and paint backgrounds. So I sold a lot of those. We would go speak at a seminar, and I would sell out everything we had. And in a speaking fee, you'd make $500, $1,000, something like that in a day. But then the materials that I was able to sell on the side, on top of that, was 10 times that every time I would speak. So, it was real easy in a year for me to make 50, 60 grand on the side selling educational materials. So I did that too. All you got to do is start, think about what you want to do, and get better at it. That's all there is to it. It's not that hard. So then 2 other things that I did as I was a photographer working full time in my own business is I did some side jobs, because in my business, in a lot of industries, there is a busy season, there's a slow season. So in my slow season, which would start generally in the fall, November, December, once we were done with our high school seniors, our school pictures, our contract photography for sports, and then families and things like that, through the winter months, it was pretty slow. So I had a friend that developed a product to sell in the hunting industry, and I would go rep for him at all the different trade shows, and I would sell for him. But I was also able to bring my own products along that I would buy and I would sell. So basically a reseller at these events, and I could easily make $1,000 a day doing that. So I did that for years, and it was really good side money. On top of that, I also in my spare time started buying and selling books on Amazon when Amazon was first getting going. So I would go to book sales, I would go to rummage sales, I would go to library sales, and I would buy books. I would scan them, you find out the code on it, and you know what it's worth, how many units are available, what their actual sale price is, and you know if you need to buy it or not. And I did tens of thousands of dollars a year doing that too. And that was just on the side. And I quit doing that a few years ago because I got too busy with this, and that was the next adventure I went on. I started doing firewood because I wanted to get some exercise. Around 50, I always cut wood, but never a lot, and I always wanted to cut more because I really enjoyed it. So one day I said to myself, and this was maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, I said, boy, I wish I could cut firewood and split wood a couple hours every day. That would be just awesome, because I love doing it, like a lot of you. Well, it turned into this. Now I sell hundreds of full cords a year. Hundreds. And it's become a whole nother business unto itself. And then while I was doing that, my son says to me, you know what you're doing? You could have a YouTube channel. I've looked at what's out there. There's not much. I think at the time, Joe's Premium Firewood had a channel. I think the Morgans were just starting around then. And so I looked at it and I thought, I don't know. My son says, well, you've got some education with the photography part of it. You've got all the computers, you got cameras, give it a try. So I started making videos, and I had about 6 months worth of video shot and I didn't upload any. So then I started realizing, you know, I got to do something with these. So I started uploading, and then within 3 or 4 months I got monetized. Just kept hammering the videos out. My original intent was to just do, you know, a video a day for a couple months, and then I would taper off to maybe a couple a week. Well, I just kept going. Well, now almost 5 years later, there's a video every day for you to watch, and now YouTube is actually my biggest source of income. Yes. I make way more money on YouTube than I do firewood. I do a lot of firewood. I make more money on YouTube than I do in my photography business, which I've had for 30 some years. But it's a lot of work. It's 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, every day. You can make money. All you got to do is start moving, think about what you can do to serve others. Find something that other people will benefit by what you do. That's all there is to it. That's how you be an entrepreneur. Find a need, fill it. We're going to go fill this order. We're going to go make a big steamy dump right now. I am back from the delivery, and that delivery went really well. You saw at the end there when I showed you the rack we filled up. Now that rack was 8 feet wide and at 4 feet high is basically middle of my chest, and we were about this high. So it was almost half of a full cord. And the guy that I delivered to, I said, I think the guy that I had load this wood, I'm gonna have to fire because he got a little over exuberant in the loading. He says, no, he did a good job. You got to keep him. I said, yeah, I got a little bit more than I should have here. He says, yeah, I think this is a record as far as how much extra you brought. Because I was taking a little bit extra, but I threw some more in, and he's happy, I'm happy. He gave me extra money. He didn't have to. I said, oh, you don't have to do that. He said, this is what it is. I charge $130 for the wood, $25 for the delivery, and then he helps me stack, so I don't even charge him. But he gave me some extra money. So as far as being an entrepreneur, some of the downfalls I want to talk about. Number one, there's no sick days. As long as you're breathing and you can get out of bed, you're going to work. There's very few friends that I have that are self-employed entrepreneurs that take sick days. They go in sick because work's got to get done. There's no one you're going to call in to say, fill in for me, please, will you? Or I can't come in today, I've got a hangover. That doesn't happen. You're going in the next day. And that's okay. I like that. I can't stand sitting around. I don't like being sick. Generally, if I don't feel good, if I go to work, I feel better. That's just me. Now, another thing that you got to think about when it comes to being self-employed, no one's going to come to your rescue when the money stops flowing. It's up to you to go find more ways to make money. Serve people in another way, provide a better product, provide more product, get it done. And that doesn't matter what you do. It's all about getting something to other people that they want, need, and desire. That's all it is. But you got to be on your toes all the time. Another downfall is I want to be busy all the time. That's a downfall. I mean, it's good, but it's also bad because when I go to a family function, I want to be working. It's like I'm good for about an hour or two, and it's like, well, what can I do productive now? So I'm always looking for what's next, what I can do. Another downfall is that I have been self-employed now for 30-some years. No one is paying my health insurance. It's just this guy. So there's not a lot of bennies that I get from the company other than the truck that I drive pays for the fuel. When we go on vacations, the company pays for that because it's a business meeting. Out to eat, business pays for that. It's a business meeting. There's a lot of things you can do. So as an entrepreneur, you got to make sure you're smart, get a good accountant, get a good lawyer, make sure you run things properly so that everything's taken care of. That's important. That is all I got for today, folks. Tomorrow morning, I will be back 5:30 a.m. with another video for you. Right now, you're going to go watch some more of the videos on my channel because there's over 1,600, almost 1,700 now for you to watch. That's all we got for today, folks. Good night, everyone.